Welcome to another episode of the Trusted Advisor podcast and video series powered by the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Our goal on the pod is to accelerate the success of today's and tomorrow's leaders in the retail IT industry. I'm Jim Roddy, back with you again. Thank you so much for joining us. Throughout the year, we've been talking with leaders about their leadership journeys and what they've learned along the way. When we first talked with today's two guests, it was back in March of 2020 in episode 12 about VAR Leadership Transitions. So today we're catching up with them about 4.5 years later for an update on their leadership path and to learn more from them. Our first guest is Blake Gillum. He's the president of DCR, an RSPA member that's a VAR managed services provider and software developer headquartered in Nashville. Blake started as DCR's director of marketing in 2010 before being named GM 7 years ago and president in March of this year. Blake is active in the RSPA as a member of the RSPA Marketing Committee, VAR Business Growth and Development Community, and as an RSPA board member. Blake, welcome back to the Trusted Advisor.
Hey, Jim. Happy to be here. Glad to be back on the show.
Wonderful. And just so everybody knows, we're recording this the afternoon of when it was just announced that Blake was elected to a new 3-year term on the RSPA Board of Directors. So, Blake, congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm honored to have the support of the association, and I'm just really looking forward to continuing serving.
Excellent. We're looking forward to that as well. Our second guest is also an RSPA reseller member and also an RSPA board member, but he doesn't compete with Blake because he's about 4,000 miles away. Thomas Greenman is the president and co-owner of Skurla's POS Solutions in Anchorage, Alaska. Thomas started as a service manager at Skurla's in 2008, became sales manager in 2017, and was named president in January 2023 when then owner Lynn Skurla Perkins retired. And again, just like Blake, he's very active in the RSPA, not just as a board member, but he's also on the marketing committee and the VAR Business Growth and Development Community. Thomas, welcome back. It's always great to talk with you.
Thank you. I'm honored to be back. I love the podcast. I love the show. I love the RSPA. So the pleasure's all mine.
Well, thank you. We're looking forward to, as one author, I can't remember who it was, he talked about vacuuming people's brains. So I'm looking forward to vacuuming both of your brains today and sharing it with our audience. So let's catch up with you. And so, Blake, if you can go first, I'm hoping each of you can give our audience an overview of your organization today, like in terms of number of employees, the vertical markets you serve, the regions you serve, and then also talk about how your organization is different from when we talked back in 2020. So, Blake, if you can answer that first, please.
Absolutely. So, as you said, we're a VAR MSP developer who we're based out of Nashville, Tennessee, and we've been in business since 1963, right? Or 1961, 63 years, very long time. And we predominantly serve the Southeast United States. However, we can go anywhere. So we follow our clients where they may go. And predominantly we serve the grocery, fuel, retail, and restaurant verticals. And we've got about 43 amazing team members who has helped keep us in business for these 63 years and allow us to provide the service and solutions that we provide today. So, if I got to look back to 2020, which was arguably one of the craziest years I think I've ever seen, in addition to a global pandemic which rocked every industry, but also in particular for us, being based in Nashville, literally a month before the pandemic hit, we were struck by a tornado. And it damaged both of our buildings, and so it sent us remote in a matter of 12 hours. By the time got the call from the alarm company that all of our doors had blown open, all the sensors at once have gone off. Wow. And there was a problem to the next morning getting our server back online and getting everybody set up remote. But so what's different now than back then is really, we have fully settled into this, hybrid remote workspace, right? Which, we've always gone a little back and forth about, do we stay remote? Do we bring everybody back in? We have certain, departments or revenue centers within our business, such as field services, who, they have to be in office to be able to do that. But we've really settled in and decided, we are going to stay for those positions who can be remote. We're going to keep them remote. I was a naysayer. I thought this is going to hurt the bottom line. The P&L is going to show, obviously, this is a big problem. No way everyone's going to be as productive. And I will admit when I'm wrong, I was proven very much wrong. We have, again, an amazing team who, if anything, seems to be happier kind of working in their own environment. And so, that's one thing that's changed. Also, we've had to transition. Our industry is changing more rapidly than ever. It seems in these past 4 years, I don't know if this was accelerated by COVID, kind of things fall apart, they get built back together differently. That, we've had to speed up our transition from just being a value-added reseller. So we're investing more in developing some of our own solutions, figuring out how, we can better integrate, right solutions that can integrate onto some of these, the softwares we have, the platforms that are being built, and also at the same time trying to not lose focus of what we do best, which is, providing great professional services and first-class customer experience. So, really what's different, a lot, but not much. Again, we're trying to stay very focused on growth like everybody else, but true to what we do well in this new environment we're all operating in.
Excellent. Well, thank you for that. It sounds like some planned changes, and then some, like you said, with the tornado, you do, and the COVID, like you do what you got to do when things are happening. So
that's true. The good news is we were absolutely overdue for a remodel. Everything was maroon and green, and it needed a facelift. Admittedly, we did. When you walked in, we did not look like a tech company before the tornado. So it was a forced remodel was probably needed.
Right. Well, thank you for that. Thomas, tell us about Skurla's, talk us some, who you serve today, and then how you're different compared to 4.5 years ago.
Sure. So Skurla's, we've been in business since 1976. We've firmly been a family-run business for almost all that time. Nowadays, we're around 7 employees, which is kind of what we were in the past. Nowadays, my wife works with us, so we're kind of still a family-run business. We really target the retail and hospitality markets in Alaska, and so we kind of pride ourselves on Alaskans serving Alaskans. And the some of our customers are the typical that you would kind of expect from the hospitality market. You've got the restaurants and bars and that type of thing. But we also have our rural customers. So I say rural Alaska, way out in the bush. So the bush is, places where you have to take a boat or a plane to get somewhere. There's not a lot of road networks to get to them. And so we're helping Alaskans out in those areas where, they're in a small village, 200, 300, maybe 100 people. And so we're bringing technology to them. And in the old days, it used to be cash registers, and now it's full-fledged point-of-sale systems, with a lot of increasing technology. But since I took over the company, a couple of years ago, I'm the sales manager. I kind of wear a lot of hats. I kind of have to. I'm like the hair club, for men. Not only the sales manager, but I'm also the president.
Yeah.
But we've kind of shifted a lot of our ideals since we kind of had this change in ownership of wanting to embrace more technology quite a bit quicker. So instead of being reactionary to it, we want to embrace that change. And I feel like as a small ship, that's kind of like our strength, that agility, in trying to harness that type of agility to move into these newer markets and newer technologies that we can bring into our customers. I think with some of the bigger ships out there with smaller rudders, they have a challenge with that they are not as agile. But we really want to be indispensable to our customers. And so in the past, we kind of keyed into like, okay, we want to offer a few core products and really kind of master that. But there's kind of a fallacy inside of that, in that, we're limiting what we do. We're limiting, the products that we're bringing to our customers. So we've kind of shifted gears and saying, like, we're going to bring on more stuff, from a smaller, operation, 7 people. it can be a bit of a challenge, but we feel like, the customer deserves that. They need the latest stuff. They need to have more options on the table than just like, okay, well, we do two products and that's it. So we're pushing ourselves in a lot of different ways. We're bringing AI into a lot of our marketing and social media stuff. We're really looking for AI and these newer technologies to really push into the actual point of sale and payments end of it as well. So we're looking at vendors that are doing that type of thing. Like, how can we leverage these types of things? So yeah, we're definitely futuristic in that regards nowadays.
And it sounds like one of the changes you made, I'm not going to get the exact quote right, but Dan Bratland from CoCard was on one of the panels at Retail Now, and he said to compete today, he said before you only had to have, I think he said one pony in your stable, right? Because I represent this software. He said, now I've got like six. And so that's what
Yeah,
it sounds like you're doing is you have to present, it's harder for you internally to manage all those different softwares, but you're giving way more options to your merchants, if I'm understanding that correctly, Thomas.
absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Yeah, I will say though that, nowadays it seems like a lot of the softwares are very similar. So it's not like you're like, this software is so radically different, it's going to blow somebody's minds. There's kind of a baseline that they're all kind of creeping towards. It's kind of like the Apple and Android worlds. They're so similar, they're just minor differences. So it really is kind of a mentality change that we have to kind of take on of like, okay, it's not that different. We just have to understand those nuances and move on with it. But yeah, you have to have more out there because our customers want more. They're not so cut and dry anymore. It's not a binary decision like,
Yeah.
it's this or that. Like, it's like all these different factors come into play. So you have to have something available for them.
Great. Well, thank you both for that. And so I mentioned at the outset of this podcast that we talked 4.5 years ago. I went back and re-listened to that. And just so you know, I'm not going to do what Tim Russert used to do when he hosted Meet the Press. He'd be like, here's a clip of you saying something and contradicting. I'm not going to do that. But I did pull out some excerpts from that. And so back in 2020, both of you made the case about systems and checklists and about their importance. And so, Blake, one of your quotes was, you said, without systems, it's like having roads with no lines painted on them and no traffic signals. So, Blake, if you can kind of build upon that and talk about how how do they continue to play a role in increasing your effectiveness as a leader? And is there a particular system that you want to talk about now that's really helped you over the past 4.5 years as a leader?
Absolutely. So, I stand by that statement. I think systems, particularly when it comes to growth and, expanding your reach and capacity are very, very important, of course. And, I think there's really at its core two essential systems that every business really has to have. You've got to have your operational systems. And then one, I think, as you develop and you mature in your leadership, you start thinking about, wow, do I have decision making systems, right? So, I recommend everybody, if you don't have it, no matter how big or small, you got to have your PSAs, your ERP, and your remote management tools. We live in a world now where those are essential to make sure from everything's being sold and quoted correctly, your purchasing is going, funnel, you're getting all that done smoothly, you're billing correctly, your contracts and managed services and asset management are all being handled, and ensuring also the proper legal paperwork and agreements are being signed, and just basic overall operational efficiency and profitability, right? And we've got that in spades over here. We really tried to invest in that. We spent a lot of time, but over the years, as I've transitioned, from the role in 2017 and the marketing director role into now as the president role, we're bringing more leaders up. And so you start thinking about, all right, we're building this leadership team. What system do we have for decision making? Because that's getting more important, particularly with the rapid change of pace in our industry. It's more important than ever, right? So we started to do was say, okay, so what kind of system can we use to make sure we're prioritizing and investing the time and energy in the right things that drive our business to long-term periods of growth and success, right? And it's real easy, particularly with all the change to just look around and go, oh my gosh, there's all these shiny things, there's all these revenue opportunities. If I could do this and this, and oh, that looks great. And you go in 1,000 different directions. So it's, we've kind of been utilizing, and, I spoke about it a little bit at Retail Now. I know, Jim, you've spoken about it in various committee meetings and presentations. And, we've been trying to utilize the flywheel concept from a decision-making standpoint in our organization. And, we could probably have a whole, session today on the flywheel concept, right? But, just real briefly, it's pretty much just a repeatable series of actions that are cyclical in nature that allow your business to do what it does best while gaining momentum, right? And so what we do is we identified our 5 or 6 core concepts. And, it's what has made us successful over the past 63 years and what we feel will continue to. And so when our leadership team and myself, and it's looking at, okay, what should we prioritize and invest our valuable time, energy, and money in? We take that idea and we compare it against the flywheel. It's kind of like a litmus test where it's going to go, okay, does this thing put energy into that process, or is it taking energy and diverting it away? And if it diverts it away, then, it's likely not something we should do, or someone has to have a very, very good explanation of why we need to add another thing into this flywheel. But really, that kind of system, I think, has helped us from our decision-making process and really allowed us to kind of hone in and prioritize and stay focused on where we need to go to meet this rapidly changing needs of our customers and the industry. So that, I think, is a key system that a lot of people overlook.
Yes. And I have to say, I have on my phone, because I took a picture of it at Retail Now in your session, the flywheel that you shared on the screen there. Can you talk about also from that standpoint, if anybody wants to read more on the flywheel, you can search on the RSPA website. We have notes on that, and it goes back to a Jim Collins, the author of Good to Great. Can you talk about, does it help where it's less opinion based? Blake wants to do this and Andy wants to do this, but you can go, okay, the flywheel is going to take out, as much as he can, the opinions and have it be based on our principles and our best practices. Is that, I guess, one of the benefits of it, that you don't get in arm wrestling matches from a leadership team where it's more based on the facts and something that you landed on before, way prior to that? Am I understanding that correctly?
I think it is. We found that it's very helpful that way. And it's very helpful in just bringing everyone back to center and focus, right? It's very easy. We are blessed with an amazing team, and we have great leadership, and we've got a lot of fantastic ideas. And so it's a great way, and we like as many ideas being thrown out there as possible, right? If you got one, let's listen to it. It's the and give me more, give us more.
Yes.
But to your point, yes, we have found that, once we've got all these ideas, and, people tend to, be a little biased towards theirs and want to do the arm wrestling thing of it helps you bring it back and go, okay, does it fit into one of these, and kind of clear out the things that are a little bit of noise and get to the real, ideas or products or solutions or processes that we can implement that are going to cause the right type of momentum for our organization.
Yes, every idea in a vacuum seems great, but when you compare it with your flywheel and line it up with all your other priorities, then that's when you got to be realistic about it. So, well, that's great. That's a great decision-making system, because a lot of people don't have those or talk about those. Thomas, can you talk about systems, the role that they play and help you as a leader, and again, a particular system that maybe has helped you?
So we've been on EOS, I think, for close to like 10 years now. And so
EOS, just for those who don't know, Entrepreneurial Operating System. You can find that online, the book Traction by Gino Wickham. So, okay, just want to make sure we don't have people tripped up on acronyms or initialisms here. Yeah. So just want to explain EOS.
Yeah, it's been very transformative for us. It kind of took us from, where we were in the past. We kind of had this framework of policies and procedures, and, it was kind of the mentality, here's what we've always done. And we didn't really kind of question what we did. So this really kind of kind of steered us more to, organizing like a unified vision of like where we want to go and like how to get there and like what are those processes and procedures are that's going to take us to that. And not to, get into too much in the weeds of EOS, but it was very transformative for us for a while. But I think one of the roadblocks we kind of got stuck on was some of the processes and procedures for processes and procedures sake. And it was kind of like this just roadblock that just wouldn't allow us to move any forward and really get traction, which is the name of the book that EOS is kind of comes directly out of. So we tried to really kind of figure out like what is stopping us, and really what it was is we were too focused on the policies and procedures themselves, like going by the book literally. And so what we decided to do was like, okay, this isn't going to work. Like let's take a step back, look at like what EOS really is, and figure out like what works for us and what doesn't, and throw away what doesn't and keep the rest. And so we did that, and that actually kind of got us past a big spot in our journey from being like a company who went from the old ways to new ways, and then to something that is more unique to us and what we were trying to do. And I think that's something that we're trying to really embrace more of. The system is not just the system. It's like it always needs to be worked on. I'm not going to be happy with it ever. We've also kind of struggled with some of our own internal softwares and some of the vendors that we work with. And I kind of understand how to put it. It's like kind of going back to our old mentality of like, we only need a few things. Like we just need this and this will work. And we're kind of coming to that realization across the board, not just externally with our customers, but internally that, not one system is going to do everything you need. The Swiss Army knife is great, in an emergency, like, you need to use this, you need to use that. But realistically, like you want the best tools available to you. And sometimes the best tool is not the one that has, the Swiss Army knife. So we've kind of got back into that, like, what works for us, what doesn't work. And so it's kind of like a Harley Davidson or a muscle car that you're working on. It's like you're always trying to incorporate these new things into it, maybe a new carburetor or something like that. But where we go to industry events, we consume a lot of industry content and leadership content. And it's like, I'm always trying to push something more into the engine. It's like, what can I do to make it better? I really feel like if the day I'm complacent and like everything's fine, it's going to work okay, I don't need to do anything else.
This car's not getting any better ever.
Right. I feel like that's the day I just need to turn the reins over to somebody else. So, EOS for us is like, there's our version of EOS now. Like that it's our operating system now. It's not like the book. It's not stock. We've customized it.
I am so glad to hear you say that, because that's how I felt. So like I was introduced to EOS after working for a company that had its own systems for almost 20 years. And so some of the EOS stuff I was like, this is great. And some other stuff I was like, this is a bit much. Like I don't see like human beings acting like this every week or every meeting or something like that. It just seemed like it was a little bit much. I don't know if you're willing to share, or if you can talk about like, can you talk in particular about anything that you threw out, or is it just you do stuff less frequently to map into your business? I'm curious if you're able and willing to answer that question.
Yeah. So the first thing that comes to mind is probably the biggest thing that we really kind of got tackled or had to tackle was rocks. So, everybody's got a rock for the quarter or multiple rocks. And in the beginning, we were like,
if I can just pause you for 1 second, for those who don't know EOS, rocks are the biggest, most important things. You put those into the bucket first, and then you fit the smaller rocks there, as opposed to the reverse. If you do all the small stuff first, you'll never get to the big thing. So that's what it means when they talk about rock. So just I'm your interpreter here for EOS. So back to you, Thomas.
Thank you. So yeah, the rocks, everybody is supposed to have a rock in that process. And that's something that they're trying to move, they're trying to get past. And in the beginning, we were looking at things in essentially, I'll save some time, things that we were looking at, things that we felt that were big picture ideas, but we were assigning people to them, or assigning rocks that people just had no direct control over. Like, for example, like, okay, well, we need to do these things with the customers and we need to get the customers to do this. And the problem inherently with that is that that's not a rock that you have control over. That's a rock that the customer has control over,
Right.
or a vendor has control over. And unless you can go to the customer and force them to do something, which I don't know how well that works for anybody else. It doesn't work well for us.
It works for a limited period of time.
Yeah.
As Thomas Baranow at Order Counter said, if we change something, like, you'd have to deal with it for a little bit, but then eventually you would do whatever you want to do. So yeah, you can't control your customers.
So our employees were having, these struggles, and the problem was that these rocks needed to be addressed. They needed to be handled, but could they really be accomplished, by one person or whatnot? So what we stopped doing was, okay, it was more like a criteria. It's like, is this something that you have direct control over? And if the answer is no, then it's like, that's not a rock that you're going to have. Like, let's find something else that you have direct control over, and let's get that pushed aside. Because what ended up happening is the rocks kept getting rolled over, like from one quarter to another, to another, to another. And nothing really ended up happening. It was just like, okay, you've got a rock and that's it. And like, are you on track or you're off track? That was kind of the report that you would get, like whether you're making progress with it or not. And it was like off track, off track, off track. And it's like, why spend all this time and energy chasing after this rock that you'll never be able to do anything with? It's like, find something that you can do. Like, find the rock that you can push. It's like trying to move Mount Everest. You'll never be able to do that. But the rock in your backyard that's been sitting in there looking at you, it's like, you can take care of that one. Like, take care of those things first.
Yes. Well said. Well, thank you both for those insights. I want to ask you next about your leadership challenges. But before we do that, I just want to pause for a second to let our listeners and viewers know about the RSPA, the Retail Solution Providers Association. The RSPA is North America's largest community of retail technology VARs, software providers, vendors, and distributors. Members benefit from RSPA White Glove Service, which is provided by the member services team of Peggy Fry, Nicole Green, and Ashley Nagy. Instead of leaving you on your own to navigate our growing list of member companies and member benefits, Peggy, Nicole, and Ashley will make warm one-on-one introductions on your behalf to fellow members who can accelerate your success. To learn more, email membership@gorspa.org. Also, we want to say thanks to our sponsors who support the RSPA community and make this podcast and video series possible. Our platinum sponsors, Blue Star. Our gold sponsors are CoCard, Epson, Heartland, and ScanSource. Finally, save the date for Inspire 2025, the Retail IT Channel's premier leadership conference. RSPA Inspire is set for January 26th through 29th in Curacao. For more information, visit gorspa.org/inspire so you too can experience networking nirvana and meet in person Blake Gillum and Thomas Greenman. So, So the people are just going to start signing up now that they know they'll be able to get autographs from you guys. So let's talk leadership challenges. And so first I want to talk about your biggest leadership challenge back when we talked in 2020. And Thomas, if you want to take this one first, you said your biggest challenge was time, working on several different initiatives at the same time and ensuring you have enough time to help your customers and your team. Can you talk about how did you address that? How much of a challenge is time management for you today?
Well, it was pretty easy. I just invented time travel, and no, it's still a problem. It's still a challenge, but I feel like the older I get, the less time I still have available for things, especially as a leader. But I feel like what works better for me now is my internal transmission, if you will. I can shift from that personal to work with far greater ease than I used to do in the past. It's easy to get caught up in some of the emotional aspects of decision making, and sometimes it would sit with me for a while. I'm sure you probably had that, where you're just sitting at home thinking about something and business related, and you just can't get out of it. And if I've been thinking about business, I'll sit in that gear for so long. It's hours. It's hours into a weekend or an afternoon or late at night, and and
you've done nothing but fret. You haven't gotten any smarter. You haven't gotten any more information. You've just been fretting.
Yeah, or it's been the scenario game where you just kind of keep tossing back, like, what if I did this? What if I did that? And I think I found it was easy to shift into business, but to come out of it, that was the challenge. And ultimately that's the inefficiency because you're not making a decision. You're just kind of stuck there.
Yeah.
But since 2020, I've gotten a lot more experience. I've gotten much more perspective on life, that life's short, and there's certainly an opportunity cost in that time. And I know it sounds selfish, but I've found that if I put the same importance on my personal and family time as my work, it's made it easier for me to shift between those two. Instead of idling around about something I can't change, I'm like, okay, I've looked both ways. I think that's a Davy Crockett quote. Look both ways and then go ahead. So I try to do that. It's like, okay, I've considered this, I've considered that. It's time to move forward. And then I just kind of shift back into personal life. And it's made me more efficient because I'm not so afraid to think about business stuff at home, and after hours. So it's not a bulletproof theory. It's
Sure.
certainly helped.
But it's better.
It's better. And 60% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Blake, you said your biggest leadership challenge back 4.5 years ago, and during your leadership transition, you said internal self-doubts. You said becoming comfortable at the highest level of decision making and realizing there's not just one way to solve a problem. So talk about, are you more comfortable today in your leadership role?
Absolutely. And when I said that back in 2020, I was referring to when I took over the position of general manager in 2017. And you get handed, I'm managing our management team, setting direction, making sure there's money in the bank, there's all, and all of a sudden it dawns on you, you go, wow, I've got a 56-year-old company that now they're like, hey, here, lead this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that any young leader in that position, or any young leader period, one of the things we don't like to talk about, because we've told as leaders you got to be strong and you got to be unwavering, and so and that's important. It's important to the team, know that you're confident, you're going, but as leaders, I feel like we should be able to discuss with each other something that I think is very natural, everybody has felt, right? And if I'm a firm believer that if you go into a role where your decisions are very important, and they impact a lot of people. I mean, I've got 43 lives and families that depend on the decisions we make to continue putting food on the table and continue providing for the and if you don't respect that, you may not be taking the role seriously enough.
Yeah.
And so I will say that yes, over time, that does become easier. You start realizing that it's like when you have a newborn baby, right? Everything is going to hurt this thing. When in reality, I mean these they're not fragile. They bounce and not encouraging dropping them, but they're not as delicate and fragile as you think. And so the more decisions you make, you start becoming a little more comfortable. And I think for any, my advice to any young new leader out there is, having a little bit of, self-doubt. Not self-doubt's a word for it, but also, where you're not going to always know the right answer to every decision or problem that you confront. And so, to be comfortable enough saying, you know what, I've gathered all the information I can, and I'm going to make this decision based, the best decision I can based off the information I have, and come to terms with it may be the right decision. It may be a landmine you never knew you were about to step on, but it's okay, because the only wrong decision is no decision at all. And sitting there not making it. And so, absolutely. And I said that then just because I feel like it's a very important thing that we as as leaders really don't talk about enough. And I think everyone's experienced it in one way, shape, or form. But I will say, it's like, sailing. You weather enough storms, and you get enough you take enough lumps on the head, you start
Yeah.
realizing, okay, we're going to mess up. And it's okay to mess up.
Right.
It's actually, if you're not messing up, it means you're not trying anything new.
Yes.
So, take that, don't let that self-doubt turn into inaction, and don't let that inaction, I guess, paralyze you from doing the things that your company needs to grow. Don't be afraid to go out and stub your toe. I'm not saying, put all of, go take all of your liquid assets and gamble them in the casino, because by
Right.
God, we might double our money, right?
Right.
But I mean, make informed, calculated decisions and risks, and it's okay to be wrong.
Yeah, you don't want to have hubris, right? Like anything I do is going to be perfect and I'm a genius, but you've got to make sure you try something and then you measure along the way. But before you jump, I had a mentor who told me you like everything that you do is based on the people you meet, the content you consume, and the experiences that you have. So if you want to get better, just do more of each of those three, right? And consume more content, meet more people, and then just have more experiences. And it's hard to accelerate the experience one. But if you do enough of that, you're going to get a way better perspective. It doesn't mean you're going to be perfect, but you're going to feel more confident in your decisions because you have way more, we talk about, I know it's not right to say like a bag of tricks, but you have like a bag to pull from. You're like, oh, I've done this before. Or like the sailing analogy, I've never sailed. I've been on a boat one time with Mark Olson from APG Cash Drawer, and he's like, do you want to help with this? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know my port from my starboard. Like, I am not going to help here whatsoever. So if you build up in those areas, you're going to feel better. It's not going to be perfect, but you're going to be able to make a better decision and then adjust along the way. So I'm glad you brought that up. So thank you for that, Blake. Blake, I want to talk a little bit more in the time that we have left. Let's get into some specific experiences that shaped you as a leader. And then Thomas, I'll ask you the same question. Can you talk about like one learning experience or a story that's really stuck with you and shaped you as a leader?
Yes, actually, and this is probably going to be the opposite of what everybody will think. Is again, I'm a very people-oriented leader. People are the thing that's made us successful. I'm also very results-oriented. I want us to get the results. And for a long time, when you start becoming a leader and you take these positions, you've got this thing, particularly if you're just naturally people-oriented, you want to make everybody happy. And so as you're making this decision-making process, you're like, oh man, so I want to make sure I come up with something that appeals to everybody, right? And I kind of learned a long time ago that you can't make everyone happy. And the story behind that was, we were trying to come up with some new ideas to, I guess, build morale, thank the team. And, we do golf tournaments and bowling, and not everyone golfs and not everyone bowls. And, there's a thing that, we just couldn't find that thing that could bring the whole team together. So I said, you know what? I was at a show and someone had a money machine. And I said, you know what's a great idea? Let's bring a money machine into the office, because I am under the assumption that everyone is here, as much as they love where they work and would obviously volunteer their time to work here for free, they're still here because of money, right? So who couldn't like money? So we go get the machine, we order this thing, we go to the bank, we get all this cash, we've come up with this great idea, we think, make the announcement, everybody comes in, and we're keeping this thing stocked. And sure enough, we had two people, and I'm not going to mention any names, but they just, one didn't even participate, and the other was like, well, this is just terrible. I don't know why. You should just give us this much.
Yes, yeah.
So I learned then, I was like, and most everybody was very, very happy, right? Because what a fun thing to build,
Sure.
And we put people on teams too, so you had to work together. And I mean, it was a fun thing. And everyone, at the end of the day, everyone who participated literally left with more money than they came in with, which, I mean, again, is ultimately all our,
Right.
all our goals at our jobs, right? And so I learned that day, though, and I said, wow, I really thought this was the thing that would check all the boxes and everybody was going to be happy. And so, I think, again, going back to, when you are making these decisions, don't get hung up on trying to make sure everyone is happy. Make sure it keeps driving, your business in the direction it needs to, keeps building up the momentum. Don't do anything to purposely, hurt somebody. But if you're waiting or expecting as a leader to make a decision that everyone will agree with and be happy with, you simply won't get it. And that was kind of one thing that helped, particularly when you are a people focused leader. That was a good grounding for me to go, okay, I spent all this time and energy, and like Thomas was saying, this is time you're at home, you're with your family, but here I am, I'm thinking about, how is this, this decision going to impact this, and it doesn't have to be that complex.
Yes. And realizing this thing is going to be great for this percent of my, folks, or this percent of my customers. And then this other thing is going to, because it's not going to be all of them. So you have to do some sort of combination. It's funny you bring it up, because here we are after Retail Now. We get the post-event survey. We had like 150 something members participate. One thing that we changed a few years ago is we moved the welcome reception onto the show floor. So it's like the First Look Expo reception. And you survey people every year. We get some people who say the First Look welcome reception is so great, don't ever change that. And then you get some people who are like, can you please go back to the normal welcome reception and not have it on the show floor? Like, you have two things that are completely opposite. You just have to go and explain to the one why you made your decision and why you didn't. So I love that story, Blake. Thank you. Thomas, what's an experience or one story that stuck with you and shaped you as a leader?
Well, I've got kind of two. I'll make them quick. I would say probably the first thing that comes to mind is my first RSPA event, which was in Vegas it was 2010. So I attended a class. It was a service class, and it was put on by Bob Bauer. And so Bob's he's a bigger VAR, way bigger than us, but
BMC based out of Michigan. Yep.
Yeah. He put on this class. I think it was for at least 2 days. And so I'm in Vegas for the first time in my life, and I'm holed up in this class, and Bob's, he's giving me the keys to the kingdom on everything related to service. I mean, it's not just a PowerPoint presentation. I mean, he's diving into everything, the who and the what and the why. And, I walked out of that class with so much knowledge and understanding, but like files and spreadsheets and just everything. And I was like, this is great. I can't wait to take this back to the team. But later on, I was like, well, why did he do this? I'm like, why would you do this? And I don't think he ever gave me a textbook answer, like, I could, back of the box kind of quote. But I mean, what he basically said, he wanted to help. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow. And so, I mean, it helped out a lot. And so, I found, the RSPA community is having so many people that wanted to give help without really thought of getting paid. And so it was kind of this further reinforced my life of that servant mentality. But I think the counterpart to that was, the first time I became a father, which was actually in 2010. And, to me, that was a really eye-opening experience that, kind of like Blake was talking about with his team, that you have all this bearing in their future. You're taking care of all these people. In my case, it was just my kids, but it changed the focus from more of me to we. And it really changed everything in my life as far as like I need to mold these people. I need to help them out. And it was not necessarily me telling somebody what to do, but like being shoulder to shoulder with them and looking at the problem mm-hmm. together. It's like, okay, how can we accomplish that? And I feel like nowadays that's directly translated into the business because I'm that father figure. I'm not going to say I'm the oldest person in the office. That's Jesse. Very clear about that. But I'm definitely that dad. Yeah, I'm the fun dad though. But I want to be that person that's their cheerleader. That's got their back. That's helping them succeed. And it extends beyond the business too. I really take an interest in their personal life. I want to help them out in that. We've got a gentleman in our staff that he blows glass, and so he was trying to do something for a magazine, and he was like, would you take some pictures for me? I was like, I'd love to do that. And so those pictures ended up on the front page of this industry magazine for
Oh,
him.
wow.
And so it really kind of did some really great publicity for him. But I just enjoyed being able to help him out. So the servant mentality and being, really caring about your people and your staff and, and your customers, how can you help them? Um, that's some of the biggest lessons that I've learned.
Yeah, I had remember went to a first internal management class back when I was at Jameson Publishing. The owner put in all caps on the marker board, "Actually care," because he's like, "We're going to teach all these management tricks and techniques, but they don't mean anything if you don't actually care about the people that you're managing and that you're tasked to lead." So step one, actually care. That's always been then burned into my brain. So we only have a couple minutes left, and so I guess I want to follow along and have that be our final question. Can you talk about a mentor that you look up to or help shape you as a leader? And like, what did they say or what did they teach you that's had a lasting impact on you? So Thomas and then Blake, talk about a mentor and what they did.
The first person that I always think about is my former boss, Lynn Skurla Perkins. She helped shape a lot of my approach. She was always so open with, her struggles, not just from a business perspective, but her personal life. And she really wanted to pass those lessons on, the things that she learned. And, her approach wasn't like, you just need to do this, but it was more of an imploring, like, method of helping make me understand, please consider doing it this way. That, it really showed that she cared. And beyond that, she was always learning. Her knowledge was pretty intimidating. She's small, but she's really intimidating. She knows a lot. And but she was never afraid to ask somebody for something or to ask questions, because she didn't know something. And I found like that's part of her strength that I find hard to find in myself, that power of asking for help. But on the flip side of that, she was so willing to give her time to listen to you, to really
Yeah.
listen, and give you some advice and share her experiences. And yeah, I love her for that. She's such a wonderful person. Of all the people in my life, she had the biggest influence for sure. Still
And
does.
a great example. I don't know her as well as you do, but I work with her on the RSPA board for years. She's a great example of somebody who like actually cares about her people, like genuinely goes above and beyond, and really, their life she feels is in their hands, and she's very meaningful with that.
Yeah, and she changed mine. She changed mine a lot.
Excellent, Blake. Can you talk about a mentor and the impact they had on you?
Absolutely. So, I've got to say, I've had a few like Thomas, but it's really my father and Cody and Steve Blackwell. And my father is, of course, taught me a lot over the years. He was involved in corporate America and, had leadership roles there. So always tried to instill, as many of these lessons growing up as he possibly could. And at any chance he got, he never, whether you wanted to hear it or not, he was going to let you know. But Cody and Steve Blackwell, who are the the owners of DCR, and who helped mentor me to my the role that I'm in now. There's one thing my father and Cody and Steve always focused on, which was it's about relationships and results. Those two things will make you successful in business. And that relationship is with your clients, your customers, focusing on that, focus on the relationship you have with your team. And then, if you focus on those two things, those solid relationships, you'll get the results you want. But, so really, that kind of set me up to kind of the philosophy I have today, which is that people centric, relationship centric, leadership. And, all too often, I think we fall into the trap of, we try to decide where we're going as an organization, and we try to put then we say, okay, well, what people do we need on the bus to get to where we want to go? When if you focus on the relationships and the people, and you get the right people on the bus first, now all of a sudden, particularly in times of change, which we're all in right now, rapid change, now we can quickly decide, where do we go? Where do we need to go? Where, we can decide where we want to go and go there now, as opposed to saying, okay, we need to go over there. now I need to fill up 30 seats on this bus with the right people, which, if anyone's been trying to hire lately, it's very, very challenging. At least I've found it challenging. But that's really been, they've helped shape, kind of my guiding philosophies as a leader. And, and it was from, I'll admit, we probably had decisions we could have made to have, made more money as a company, be more efficient, that we chose to instead, invest in our people or a better relationship with the clients. And, we don't have public shareholders that we have to answer to. So we do have that luxury. But, again, they kind of instilled in me, it's about relationships and results. And if you focus on those two things, you can cycle any product in and out, and, you can be successful.
And this will make you feel good. I'm not sure if you were in this breakout session at Retail Now. I know Thomas was, because Thomas was on the panel, but Andy Dickinson from DCR, somebody asked the question, when you're choosing a software provider, what's more important, the features or the people? And he said, the people, because I don't know exactly what features I'm going to need in 5 to 10 years, but it's going to be those people who help me get the right thing that I need for my business. So it sounds like, Blake, it's not just, that message isn't just sinking in with you from Cody and Steve. It seems like it's permeated throughout your organization, if I'm understanding that correctly.
That's right. And I've said it before, we have an amazing team. So you're correct.
Tremendous. Well, that does it for this episode of The Trusted Advisor. If you enjoyed our discussion, be sure to subscribe to the RSPA YouTube channel and the Trusted Advisor podcast so you never miss an episode. And again, I recommend you go back and watch episode number 12 after you've listened to this one, so you can hear Thomas and Blake from back in the day. So before we go, thanks again to Thomas Greenman and Blake Gillum for sharing their wisdom with us again. Thanks also to RSPA Marketing Director Chris Arnold for his production work, Joseph McDade for our music, and last but not least, thanks so much to you for listening. Our goal at the RSPA is to accelerate the success of our members in the retail technology ecosystem by providing knowledge and connections. For more information, visit our website at gorspa.org. Thanks for listening, and goodbye, everybody.